All right, ready to dive deep. Today, we're cracking open a YouTube video that claims to hold the secrets to building a business that not only survives, but thrives.
Sounds intriguing.
It's from the channel A Little Bit Better, and get this, it's based on a classic business book, The E-Myth Revisited.
Ah, a classic. I'm curious to see how they translate those concepts for a YouTube audience.
Me too.
Yeah.
So the video starts off with a bit of a wake-up call. You ready for this?
Hit me.
They say 50% of small businesses fail within the first year.
Yeah, that's a tough statistic.
And it gets worse. 75% of those that make it past year one are gone within 5 years.
Wow, that's a lot. Makes you wonder why the failure rate is so high, right?
Right. So the video dives into this thing called the fatal assumption.
Oh, I've heard of this.
It's basically the idea that just because you're good at something, you can automatically build a successful business around it.
like thinking that being a great cook means you're destined to own a popular restaurant.
Exactly. It's like assuming you can write a best-selling novel because you aced English class in high school. There's obviously way more to it than just being good at the technical stuff.
Totally. Running a business requires a whole other set of skills like marketing, finances, even just setting up systems.
And that's where the video brings up this idea of three personas that live within every business owner. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I think so, but a refresher is always good.
So remind me, what are those three personas again?
Well, think of it this way. You've got the entrepreneur, the big picture visionary, always dreaming up new ideas.
Okay, I can see that.
Then there's the manager, all about structure and order, making sure things run smoothly.
Right, right.
And lastly, you've got the technician, the one who loves to roll up their sleeves and get things done.
Yeah, the doer. I can totally relate to that. Sometimes I'm all about brainstorming, and then other days I just want to check things off my to-do list.
Exactly. And each of these personas plays a key role in how a business actually grows.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, the video talks about 3 stages of business growth: infancy, adolescence, and maturity. And each stage is kind of dominated by one of those personas.
Interesting. So let's start with infancy. What's going on in this stage?
Picture this. You're excited, full of energy, finally your own boss. But then that excitement can turn into overwhelm.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
You're wearing all the hats, juggling a million tasks, working 24/7.
Yeah, it's like you're constantly putting out fires instead of actually building something sustainable.
Exactly. It's classic entrepreneurial burnout territory. The video calls it the technician's phase
Why is that?
because the owner is so focused on doing the technical work that they forget about all the other stuff that goes into running a business.
So they're stuck working in the business, not on the business.
Exactly. So how do you think a business moves out of this infancy phase?
Well, at some point, you realize you can't do everything yourself, right?
Right. You start to bring in help, delegate tasks, try to create some order out of the chaos. That's where the manager persona starts to emerge.
So that's when things get a little more complicated. More people, more moving parts. It seems like this is where things could go off the rails pretty quickly if you're not careful.
Absolutely. The video actually uses this example of hiring an accountant named Harry. At first, it's great, right? You're relieved to hand off the books. But without clear systems and instructions in place,
Uh-oh.
Harry starts doing things his way, and suddenly the business is drifting away from the owner's original vision.
Yikes. It's like the business takes on a life of its own, and not in a good way. That sounds like a nightmare. Pouring your heart and soul into something, and then, boom, it turns into something you don't even recognize.
It happens more than you'd think, and a lot of it stems from that lack of control.
I can see that, especially if you don't have those systems in place. As the business grows, mistakes happen, customers get unhappy, deadlines get missed. It's like a domino effect.
Exactly. So how do you think you escape that adolescent turmoil? How do you get to that maturity phase, where things are running smoothly and you're not micromanaging every single detail? What's the magic formula?
Okay, I'm all ears. Spill the beans.
Now, this is where the video throws a bit of a curveball. They challenge this whole idea that maturity is just a natural progression. Instead, they argue that you can actually start a mature business from day one, even if you're a brand new entrepreneur.
Wait, hold on. Start mature. I'm not sure I follow that. How is that even possible?
It's all about perspective.
Really?
Instead of seeing your business as just an extension of what you're good at, you need to start thinking of it as its own thing, like a separate entity.
So, it's not about what you do in the business, but more about the experience the business creates.
Exactly. It's like the business is a product itself.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
The video uses this analogy. Imagine you're in a store and you see a product on the shelf. Now imagine that the product isn't something the business makes, it's the business itself.
Wow, that's a cool way to think about it.
Right. It's that entrepreneurial mindset.
So instead of being like, I'm a baker, so I'm going to open a bakery, it's more like, okay, what kind of bakery would people love? And what kind of bakery would be easy to run?
Exactly. You're designing the business like it's a product.
I'm getting it. And the video uses an example here to illustrate this. Can you guess what it is?
McDonald's.
Bingo. Love them or hate them, they've definitely built an empire. What do you think is so special about their model?
It's not about the burgers and fries, it's the system.
Ah, okay, the system. Tell me more.
Everything is standardized. The size of the patties, the placement of the pickles, everything's designed and documented.
So you're saying anyone could walk in off the street, grab the manual, and run a McDonald's?
That's the idea. Of course, there's more to it than that, but you get the point.
Okay, that's impressive. But most of us aren't trying to create the next fast food giant. So how does this McDonald's model work for a smaller business? Like a local shop or something?
That's where the franchise prototype thinking comes in.
Franchise prototype. What's that?
It's like you're building your business as if you're going to franchise it, even if you never actually plan to.
Interesting. So you're thinking about replicating the business from the very beginning.
Exactly. It's all about having those systems and processes documented so clearly that anyone could follow them.
So like detailed job descriptions, step-by-step instructions, checklists for everything.
You got it. It's about removing the guesswork and making sure everything runs smoothly no matter who's doing the work.
So instead of trying to find those super experienced employees who probably cost a fortune, you build a business that even entry-level people can thrive in.
Right. The system does the heavy lifting. It's a system-dependent business, not a people-dependent business.
That's a really powerful concept. Okay, so let's say I buy into this whole systemization thing. Where do I even begin? It seems like a massive undertaking.
Take it one step at a time. You don't have to do everything at once.
Okay, that's reassuring. But where do I start?
Think about the most important parts of your business, the ones that are absolutely essential for delivering your product or service.
Okay, so for a bakery, it would be things like the baking process itself, the recipes, the order fulfillment.
Yep. Those are the core functions. If those go wrong, everything falls apart. So start there.
And then what?
Document everything. Every single step, no matter how small or obvious it might seem to you.
Like a super detailed instruction manual.
Exactly. Imagine you're explaining it to someone who's never done it before. What steps would you need to include?
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful for training new employees.
And for maintaining consistency, too.
Right.
Right.
It makes sure everyone's doing things the same way.
Exactly. And that leads to a better experience for your customers.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But what about those situations that aren't so routine, things that you can't necessarily predict?
That's where checklists and decision trees come in.
Ah,
Instead of having your employees try to figure things out on the fly, you give them a clear process to follow.
so like a flow chart or something.
Exactly. For example, let's say a customer calls in with a complaint.
Okay.
Instead of leaving it up to the employee to decide how to handle it, you could create a decision tree that walks them through the process.
Interesting. So they ask the customer a series of questions, and based on the answers, they follow a specific path.
Right. It takes the pressure off the employee and ensures that every customer is treated fairly and consistently.
That makes sense. So these checklists and decision trees are basically like a safety net.
Exactly. They help you handle those unpredictable situations without having to reinvent the wheel every time.
Okay, this is really starting to make sense to me. I can see how having systems in place could actually create more freedom and flexibility, not less. But there's still a part of me that resists this whole systemization thing. It feels a bit too rigid, you know?
I get it. It's a common concern. But I think it's important to remember that systemization isn't about stifling your creativity. It's actually about freeing it up. Think about it this way. When you have systems to handle the routine stuff, you free up more brain power for the creative stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about turning your business into a machine. It's more like building a machine to support your business.
Exactly. And that frees you up to focus on those big picture things, like innovating or connecting with customers, or even just taking a vacation without worrying that everything will fall apart while you're gone.
Ah, no, that's the dream.
Right.
A business that can run without you having to be there all the time.
Exactly. It's about building a business that works for you, not the other way around.
I love that. So to bring it back to our listeners, what's the key takeaway here? What do you want them to walk away with?
If you really want to build a business that lasts, You have to stop thinking like a technician and start thinking like an entrepreneur.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
Think of your business as a product. What would make it irresistible to customers? What systems would make it run smoothly? If you can answer those questions, you're on the right track.
That's fantastic advice. So as we wrap up this deep dive into building a business that lasts, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. If your business were a product, what would make it stand out from the competition? What systems would you put in place to make it run like a well-oiled machine? Start thinking about those questions, and I think you'll be amazed at what you come up with. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.